If you're watching this, something may have just broken in your relationship, a betrayal you didn't see coming, or one you did and couldn't stop. And you're sitting with the one question that matters now. Is this survivable? Can we ever come back from this? Or is it already over and we just haven't said it out loud? We've all felt misunderstood in a relationship, but betrayal is its own category of pain, because it doesn't just damage what's ahead of you, it reaches backward through everything behind you. Every anniversary, every ordinary Tuesday night you thought you understood suddenly becomes a question. And nobody teaches us what's actually possible from here. That's why this channel exists. At the Relationship Blueprint, we go to the research when the stakes are highest. And on this question, the research says something almost nobody believes until they hear it. Betrayal is far more common than we admit, and far more survivable. Most couples who get real, structured support do not end over it. But recovery only happens through a specific sequence, 3 stages in order, and almost nobody follows it. We're going to walk through all 3 stages of repair, drawn from decades of research on couples who actually made it. But I have to be honest with you about 2 things up front. There's one mistake that makes recovery impossible, no matter how much you both want it. I'll show you exactly what it is at minute 9. And not every relationship should be saved. We'll talk about that too, honestly. By the end of this video, you'll know whether repair is possible for you, what the road actually looks like stage by stage, and the one thing you must not do if you want a real chance. Whatever you decide, to rebuild or to leave with your dignity intact, you'll decide it with clear eyes, starting today. Welcome back to the Relationship Blueprint. Subscribe if you're new video every week. If you found this video in the middle of the worst week of your relationship, I'm sorry you're here, and I'm going to be careful and honest with you the whole way through. No false promises, just what the research actually shows. Let's begin. Before the 3 stages, 2 facts that reframe everything about where you're standing right now. First, you are not as alone as you feel. Research suggests that roughly 20 to 25% of married people report having had an affair at some point. We treat betrayal as the rare exception, the thing that happens to other broken couples. It isn't. It is heartbreakingly common. That doesn't make it hurt less, but it means the shame telling you that your relationship is uniquely defective is lying to you. Second, and this is the part almost nobody believes, most couples who receive real, structured support after a betrayal do not end over it. Many recover. Some, and I know how this sounds from inside the wreckage, end up with a relationship that is stronger, more honest, and more intimate than the one they had before. Not because betrayal is good, but because the repair, done properly, forces 2 people to build the honest relationship they never actually had. Important reframe. Here is the reframe the whole video rests on. The relationship that recovers from betrayal is not the old relationship restored. The old relationship, the one that existed before the betrayal, is gone, and no amount of work brings it back. What recovery builds is a new relationship between the same 2 people, with the history included, like a vessel repaired with gold. Not hidden cracks, but cracks made part of the structure. Couples fail when they try to get the old thing back. Couples succeed when they grieve the old thing and build the new one. This framework comes from the researchers who have studied betrayal most rigorously. John Gottman, whose decades of observational research produced a specific, staged model of affair recovery, and Shirley Glass, the researcher often called the godmother of infidelity research, who found that the wound of betrayal is intensified or ameliorated by how it is handled. Read that again. How it is handled. The betrayal itself doesn't determine whether you make it. What happens next does. Gottman's model has 3 stages, and they must happen in order: atone, attune, attach. Let's walk through what each one actually requires, and where each one fails. The betrayal does not decide whether your relationship survives. What happens in the weeks and months after it does? Recovery is not the old relationship restored. It's a new one built by the same 2 people, with the history included. And it happens through 3 stages, in order that almost nobody follows. Stay until minute 9, because between the stages, there's one mistake that makes recovery impossible, no matter how much you both want it, how sorry the betrayer is, or how much love is left. It's not the betrayal itself. It's something that happens after, usually with the best intentions. And it quietly guarantees the repair collapses. I'll show you exactly what it is at minute 9. Stage 1 of 3. Atone. The betrayer carries the weight. No shortcuts through this one. What this stage is. Atonement is the stage where the person who betrayed takes complete responsibility, without defensiveness, without blame shifting, without, but you have to understand why I did it. They express genuine remorse, answer questions honestly, become fully transparent, and, hardest of all, they stay present to their partner's pain as many times as it resurfaces without rushing it. What it looks like in practice. In practice, the betrayer ends all contact with the third party, offers transparency freely rather than under interrogation, listens to the same anguished questions repeatedly without saying, "How many times do we have to go over this?" and tolerates their partner's waves of rage and grief without collapsing into, "I'm the real victim of your anger now." The betrayed partner, meanwhile, is allowed to feel everything and gets to ask what they need to ask. This stage belongs to their healing, not the betrayer's comfort. The research. Gottman's model is unambiguous on this. Rebuilding after betrayal is not possible without this step. The betrayer must take the blame for their actions, fully, and research on betrayal trauma explains why. The betrayed partner often experiences a PTSD-like response, hypervigilance, intrusive thoughts, panic, emotional numbness. That is not weakness or drama. It is a nervous system processing a genuine trauma, and it heals on its own timeline through being witnessed, not through being hurried. Where this stage fails 2 ways. It fails when the betrayer atones partially, apologizing but defending, confessing but minimizing, staying in contact with the third party just as friends. Partial atonement reads as continued betrayal, and the betrayed partner's nervous system knows it. And it fails when the betrayed partner is pressured to move on before the atonement is complete, which is the mistake we'll cover at minute 9. If atonement never truly finishes, nothing built on top of it will hold. Stage 2 of 3. Attune. Understanding how the gap opened, the stage most couples skip. What this stage is. Attunement is where the couple, once atonement has genuinely landed, turns together to face a harder question. How did the distance that made this possible open up in the first place? This is not about excusing the betrayal. The betrayal remains 100% the betrayer's responsibility. It's about honestly mapping the unmet needs, the disconnection patterns, the communication breakdowns that hollowed the relationship out before anyone else stepped into it. What it looks like in practice. In practice, learning to talk about needs that went unspoken for years, naming the moments each person stopped reaching for the other, replacing the corrosive conflict patterns, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling, with conversations where both people can be honest without being destroyed. If you've seen my video on the communication gap, this is where that whole framework becomes the repair manual. The gap that opened before the betrayal is the gap this stage closes. The research. This is the heart of the Gottman methods approach, using structured tools to identify unmet needs, disconnection patterns, and communication breakdowns, and learning to turn toward each other and stay emotionally present during hard conversations. Attunement is where empathy grows and conflict patterns shift. Glass's research points the same direction. Affairs almost always grow in a gap that predates them. Understanding that gap, without using it to excuse anything, is what makes the new relationship stronger than the old one. Where this stage fails. This stage fails when it starts too early. Before atonement is complete, understanding the causes feels to the betrayed partner like blame shifting. So this is my fault. Sequences everything. It also fails when couples skip it entirely, when they atone, feel relief, and rush to getting back to normal without ever understanding what normal was hiding. Skip attunement, and you rebuild the exact relationship that produced the betrayal and set the stage for it to happen again. Quick pause. And on this topic, more than any other I cover, this matters. Betrayal recovery is genuinely difficult to do without help. The research is consistent that couples who make it usually had real, structured support, a couples therapist trained in affair recovery. If that's remotely possible for you, it may be the single best investment you make in whatever comes next, whether that's rebuilding or parting well. I'll put ways to find one, including low-cost options, in the description. Now, the one mistake that makes all of this impossible. Here is the mistake I promised, the one that collapses more recoveries than the betrayal itself. It almost always happens with good intentions. And if you only take one thing from this video, take this. The mistake is rushing, trying to get back to normal before the stages have actually finished. Gottman's research is explicit on this point. Skipping phases or moving too quickly through the healing process causes the recovery to collapse. Not sometimes, reliably. And yet rushing is exactly what almost every couple does, because the pain of staying in the repair is enormous, and normal is right there, looking like relief. It looks like this. The betrayer, drowning in guilt, wants the atonement stage to end. So they start saying things like, "How long are you going to punish me? And we can't move forward if you keep bringing it up." Or the betrayed partner, exhausted by their own pain, declares forgiveness before they've actually processed anything. Because being the person who forgave feels stronger than being the person who's still shattered. Or both people, missing what they had, quietly agree to just stop talking about it. Dinner gets normal. The surface heals over, and everyone calls it recovery. Here's why that's fatal. Remember the PTSD-like response, the hypervigilance, the intrusive images, the waves of grief that arrive without warning. A traumatized nervous system does not heal on a schedule, and it absolutely does not heal by being told the window for pain has closed. When you rush past unfinished atonement, the betrayed partner's trauma doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It comes back as coldness, as sudden rage over small things, as a body that flinches from intimacy and doesn't know why. The relationship gets its surface back and loses its foundation, and months or years later, it collapses over something small, and everyone says, "But we'd moved past the affair." They hadn't. They'd buried it alive. The couples who make it do the opposite of rushing. They let each stage take the time it takes. They treat the betrayed partner's resurfacing pain not as a setback, but as the work itself. They understand that, "Are we still talking about this?" has one correct answer. Yes, for as long as it's alive. Because here is the paradox at the center of betrayal recovery. The couples who are willing to stay in the pain longest are the ones who get out of it soonest. The ones who sprint for the exit stay trapped inside for years. The betrayal doesn't make recovery impossible. Rushing does. Skipping stages or hurrying the healing reliably collapses the repair. The pain goes underground and takes the foundation with it. The couples who make it are the ones willing to go slower than they want to, for longer than feels fair. In betrayal recovery, the slow road is the only road that arrives. Stage 3 of 3, attach. Building the new relationship, the gold in the cracks. What this stage is. Attachment is the stage where the couple, having atoned fully and attuned honestly, deliberately builds the new relationship. New rituals of connection. A renewed physical intimacy that both people actually want, rebuilt by consent and degrees rather than obligation. A shared vision of the future that includes what happened instead of pretending it didn't. What it looks like in practice. In practice, creating rituals the old relationship never had. The daily check-in, the weekly honest conversation, the deliberate appreciation. Reapproaching physical intimacy slowly and mutually, because in Gottman's words, without the presence of sexual intimacy that is pleasurable to both, the relationship can't begin again. And this is the part that surprises people, telling the truth about the betrayal's place in your story. Not a secret to bury, but a chapter you both survived that taught you to build something honest. The research. In Gottman's attach stage, couples work to create a shared vision for their future, rebuilding rituals of connection, restoring intimacy, and aligning on values and life dreams, so the relationship becomes a safe, fulfilling space for both people. And the research holds a genuinely hopeful finding. Couples who complete all 3 stages often don't just survive. They end up with a relationship stronger and more honest than the one before, because for the first time, nothing is hidden. Where this stage fails. This stage fails when it's attempted as a shortcut. Couples who jump to romantic gestures and rekindled intimacy as a way to skip the pain of stages 1 and 2 are decorating a structure with no foundation. And it fails when the relationship rebuilds everything except honesty, new rituals, new closeness, but the betrayal locked in a vault neither person may open. The vault always leaks. The new relationship must include its own history, or it isn't new, it's the old one with better wallpaper. Now, the part I promised at the start, because a video that only tells you recovery is possible would be lying by omission. Not every relationship should survive betrayal, and the research says that plainly too. Sometimes the healthiest outcome is for partners to separate and focus on individual healing. That is not failure. Choosing to leave with your dignity and your sanity intact is as legitimate an act of self-respect as choosing to stay and rebuild. Here's how to tell the difference. Recovery has requirements, and they are not negotiable. It requires a betrayer who fully atones. No minimizing, no blame shifting, no continued contact with the third party. It requires both people genuinely choosing the rebuild, not one person dragging the other. And it requires a relationship that was fundamentally worth rebuilding, not one where the betrayal was just the loudest symptom of contempt, control, or cruelty that was there all along. An important truth. And one thing I need to say directly, if the betrayal sits inside a larger pattern, repeated infidelity with no real atonement, ongoing deception, contempt, control, or any form of abuse, then what you're facing is not a repair project, and no 3-stage model applies. You cannot atone, attune, attach your way out of being mistreated. If that's your situation, the bravest next step isn't rebuilding the relationship. It's getting support for yourself, a therapist, trusted people, and if there's any element of abuse, the resource is in the description. You deserve safety before you owe anyone repair. If the requirements are met, real atonement, mutual choice, a foundation worth saving, then the 3 stages are the road, and the research says the road is real. If they're not met, then the most honest outcome of this video might be the clarity to stop waiting for a repair that requires 2 people when only one showed up. Both outcomes are you choosing yourself. Both are survivable. You are more durable than this moment feels. If you've watched this far, in the middle of what might be the hardest season of your relationship, that willingness to look for the truth instead of just comfort tells me something about how you're going to come through this, whichever way it goes. If you're walking the repair road, here's where to go next. The attach stage, building the new relationship, lives or dies on one skill: learning to love each other in a way each of you can actually feel. Because here's what quietly kills rebuilt relationships: 2 people doing the hard work of repair, then pouring love into a language the other can't receive, and slowly concluding the repair failed, when really the love just wasn't landing. The love languages framework is how the new relationship gets built in a language both of you can feel. It's the practical foundation underneath stage 3. Watch that video next. Subscribe to the Relationship Blueprint. New video every week. The old relationship is gone. And that's not the end of the story. What gets built next, by 2 people who choose it with clear eyes, can be more honest than anything that came before. Go slowly. That's the whole secret. I'll see you in the next one.